Hey y'all, hey, it's your girl Morgan Renee tuning in for another story time with More of My. We are still in the book Trying to Sleep in the Bed You Made by best friends Virginia D. Berry and Donna Grant. If you have not already, please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is my name, Morgan Myers, MorganMyers. You'll see the red logo with a yellow M. You can also type in story time with More of My, and my playlist to my channel should come up. The books are in order of the chapters that I read them, so hopefully you can keep up that way, so that you can catch up on this book as well as prior readings that I've done. So let's get back into it. I did a part one of this because I had to go when I was reading it. We're in chapter 13, and Patricia is pregnant by some guy named PJ that I forget how randomly they met, but they met. She started feeling the vibes with him like she felt with Marcus that one time they was in the basement before she left to go to school and all of that. And he actually just calls her up and talks about he's in town and want to see her tonight. And she goes out, I guess, to get ready, to get prepared for seeing him later on, and runs into an old associate who happens to be married to PJ. PJ is standing there with his wife. Okay, so that's where we ended. And it was just a hot mess, so I said I had to come back to it fresh. All right, so nice to meet you. Patricia, is it? PJ wore aviator shades that masked his eyes. He looked just past her down the street, put out his hand. Pat knew she would never forget this clammy handshake, but it infused every cell of her body with a hate like venom. He planned to meet me tonight, like nothing had changed. What adorable earrings, Pat. She had on the silver ribbons PJ had given her for Christmas. They're just like the ones Peter's mother and I got for the secretary at his father's firm last Christmas. So PJ had given her secretarial leftovers, and around Edwina's neck was the necklace Pat had helped him pick out for his mother. Edwina babbled a bit longer about shopping for their new apartment. Then she said something about getting together and nudged PJ to give Pat one of his cards. Who knows? I'd really like to live in New York. That's why I pushed him to take the bar here, too. Pat wanted to rant and holler like she didn't have good sense. She wanted all the people passing to know that PJ was a low-down, fork-tongued, spineless snake. But what would that make her? Stupid enough not to know a snake when she saw one? Fool enough to get bitten? It was good to see you, Edwina. I'm meeting someone, so I've got to run. Enjoy your stay. Saying goodbye was almost easy, like the poison had already numbed her inside. All night, Pat sat up, putting the pieces together. No time, the family holidays in Hartford, I love you too. So PJ was the son of Judge and Mrs. Henry Jackson, the same Mrs. Jackson who couldn't be bothered to remember Pat's name for a lousy 6 weeks on the vineyard. How big an idiot must he think I am? By daybreak, she was oh Lord, hold on, this word is getting me. It's like anesthesia, but it's not. Anesthetized? I don't know how to pronounce it. Anesthetized. Anesthetized. Alright. Of anesthesia. Where I'm at. By daybreak, she was anesthetized to those passionate embraces, the tiger-eyed stares, and she knew what she had to do. I can't do this by myself. In her mind, she checked off all the decisions she made, situations she handled without assistance, advice, or support because she was no one's responsibility. She accepted that one night, lying under a scratchy blanket in a group home, feeling helpless and so scared she trembled. She got through that night, and from then on, she only ever counted on herself. Period. It's my mess. I have to clean it up. Pat got through the days by concentrating on work, but in the evening there were no distractions, and she felt her life slipping through her fingers. Like sand, it powdered her feet and threatened to bury her if she didn't reach out for somebody soon. Call her. Call Gail. There was not another soul Pat had let in, even a little bit. Certainly no one at work. They were too new. Althea could never know Pat had been this unforgivably stupid, and she just never trusted Jill or anybody else from her school with her real deep-in-the-night feelings because she didn't expect them to understand. She was Pat the Invincible with no visible chinks in her armor, and that was how she liked it. It had been years since she confided in Gail, but she needed someone to talk to now, someone to hear how sorry she was, how much this hurt. Well, hello, stranger. What's going on? Gail said, and the dam broke. Pat blurted out her story, choking back sobs so she could talk. Gail listened in shocked silence. She had never heard Pat so desolate, not even when they were kids. Not ever. What do you need? Can I come get you now? Pat squeezed her eyes shut to hold back the tears. She wanted to be rescued from the torture of replaying in her mind what she was about to do. No, don't come now. It's late, and I know Vanessa's asleep. Oh, God, Vanessa. She couldn't think about those bright eyes, the little fingers reaching for her tassel at graduation, the warm body asleep in her arms. It made this too personal, and it couldn't be. She felt weak asking this, but she had to. Will you go with me Saturday? I know it's short notice, but isn't there any other way? Like what, Gail? I've turned this around everywhere I know how, and I get the same answer. I can't have a baby now. A silence filled with buts and ifs and shoulds hung between them. Look, if you don't want to do it, you know I'll be there. Mama can watch Vanessa. Please don't tell her. Don't tell anybody. Pat felt so ashamed. I won't tell a soul. Get some rest. I'll see you Saturday. At 8:15 Saturday morning, Gail phoned in a panic. Ramsey was supposed to get Mama last night, but he didn't get home till after midnight. He's gone to get her now. I'll meet you there as soon as I can. I'm so sorry, Pat. Pat had been up and dressed since before dawn, sitting on the window seat drinking coffee, wanting a cigarette, and tomorrow in the worst way. Now she wanted to crawl into a hole. Dreading a thing is worse than doing it, Myra used to say, but she didn't mean this. Check in, papers to sign, then waiting and pretending to flip through magazines. Pat looked past her pages at the room full of people sitting in neat rows of yellow and orange canvas waiting room chairs. It seemed everybody else had someone to wait with. Mothers perched like stick figures, unable to look at their fidgeting daughters. Pat thought the guy wearing baggy jeans and a denim shirt looked too young to drive, but he clamped his girlfriend's hand in both of his. The girl's hair was slick, patent leather smooth, and fastened in a ponytail. She bounced nervously against the back of her chair, chewing gum on the downbeat, wiping a tear with the heel of her hand. Occasionally, her boyfriend whispered words that brought a weak smile to her face. At least he's here. A toddler giggled in amusement as he removed pamphlets one at a time from the wall rack and let them flutter to the floor. When his father came to retrieve him, he threw himself on the floor, rigid with anger, and hollered bloody murder. Get him out of here. Pat felt his screams like pins in her ears and dug her nails into her palms until they left crescent indentations. Finally, the father hustled him out of the room. Gail will be here in the next 5 minutes. She looked from her watch to the big clock on the wall, 10 max. But by the time Pat heard her name called for the group counseling session, Gail hadn't arrived. So she left word at the desk that someone would be coming for her and marched off with the others to a tiny room with big posters of female innards and birth control paraphernalia on the walls to rap about what was going to happen. She'll be here when I get out. That's when I really need her. Pat had tried to convince them counseling was unnecessary. I was using a diaphragm. It was an accident. It'll never happen again. But it was policy. We found it helpful to vent your feelings with women who know what you're going through. Right. For 3 endless hours, she listened only enough to know when she was being spoken to and made up feelings when she required to share some because she was doing her damnedest not to have any. Yes, her boyfriend was supportive. Yes, the decision was hard, but they reached it together. Like I'm really going to say the lousy, lying bastard got married to somebody he was engaged to the whole time he was fucking me, to somebody I know and don't even like, and I had to run into them on the street and find out because he didn't have the decency to tell me to my face. Worse, I might actually still love him. No, I don't need that much pity. Myrna, the girl with the ponytail, sobbed and said she didn't want to do this, but her parents would throw her out if they knew, and she was scared her father would kill her boyfriend. The counselor comforted her, asked if she'd consider other options if she wanted to think about this a while longer. Pat stared at her knees because she couldn't bear Myrna Myrna. What kind of name is that? Myrna's sadness. Myrna's sadness too. Finally, she settled down, said she wanted to go through with it. After the birth control show and tell, the counselor handed out plaid smocks, paper slippers, and told them where to find lockers. When they were dressed, they waited, and one by one called until only Pat and Myrna remained. Are you going to be all right? You look real scared, Myrna said. That blew Pat away since she was trying hard as she could not to be. I'm fine. I saw you by yourself out there. Your boyfriend's coming to get you, right? Uh-huh. It was all she could manage because her composure was slipping. The counselor peeked in and called Pat. Myrna squeezed Pat's hand. You let him help you, okay? Don't be no hero 'cause he shared the good. Let him share the bad, too. Pat's paper slippers crackled as she shuffled behind the counselor who led her to the procedure room. 2 nurses tried to put her at ease. One scurried about checking equipment and singing Do-a-dee, a female deer, in a high, tiny voice. The other helped Pat on the table, got her settled, patted her cheek with a warm, soft hand. Pat fastened her eyes on the white tile ceiling, tried not to focus on the faces so they wouldn't be real, blocked out the sharp antiseptic smell, closed her lips tight so her teeth wouldn't chatter. When the doctor arrived, she was cordial and comforting, explaining each move she made, but Pat only nodded, repeated over and over in her head while there was no other choice right now. But as the vacuum hummed and she felt the tugging deep inside, she clamped her hand over her mouth to hold in the gas, not from the knot of pain, but from the profound loss. Logic fell away as the tears floated from her eyes. She muttered, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." And when it was over, the nurse with the warm hands helped her to a bed in recovery. Pat clutched the pillow and lay there, drained and utterly empty. Moans and gentle crying from neighboring beds filtered into her consciousness as if she was at the end of a very long tunnel. She accepted a can of apple juice offered by a gentle-voiced attendant who left a cellophane packet of peanut butter crackers on the bedside table. Pat had cramps, bad ones, but it hardly mattered. She just wanted to be steady enough to leave this place, to get out before Myrna so she wouldn't see there was no he to share this with. If I can get dressed, Gail will take me home. I just want to go home. She didn't know what she would say to Gail about today or if she could talk about it at all. She just needed a friendly face, a cup of tea, because this whole episode was so ugly. So Pat put on her clothes with her last bit of energy. She glanced at a mirror and saw how lifeless she looked and put on some lipstick and blush so Gail wouldn't be so worried. When Pat opened the waiting room door, every head turned expectantly. The toddler slept in his stroller. Myrna's boyfriend paced by the window, and Gail wasn't there. Pat asked at the desk if anyone had come looking for her or called to leave a message, but there wasn't any word, so she sat in an orange chair next to the door and waited because she had to be on the way. She said she'd meet me. It's after 1. She'll be here soon. But by 2, she couldn't make any more excuses or sit still another second. What the hell am I waiting for? She's supposed to be here for me. At 4:30, Pat's doorbell rang. She started not to answer, but she wanted to hear what Gail had to say. Wanted to see her try and make this all right, but it wasn't. She planned to stay cool, but as soon as Gail walked in, Pat went off. "You didn't even call. Not the clinic, not here. I couldn't get here, Pat. Ramsey has. What the hell made you think you'd be here when you went off? What the hell made you think you'd be here when you went off and left your own damn father and oh, hold on, let me back up. What the hell made me think you'd be here when you went off and left your own damn father in the hospital because Ramsey said? That's not fair. I tried nothing. Shit, Gail, it's 4:30. I needed you this morning. I needed you to at least come get me. I stood up on the bus all the way home. What the fuck do you care? You were probably out by your damn pool." Gail recoiled, stung by Pat's attack, but she instantly went on the offensive. "And if you were as perfect as you think you are, you wouldn't be in this mess in the first place. Ramsey's right. You think you're better than me, but I had my baby." It was like Gail took a knife to Pat's belly, but she struck back despite the wound. "Oh, is that what Ramsey thinks? And I guess it's what you think, too, since you seem to have completely stopped thinking for yourself since you got Ramsey to do it for you. That's besides the fact you weren't going to tell anybody. I'd like to see where you'd be if you had Vanessa alone. Maybe then you understand how babies end up in the garbage." Ooh, no, she didn't go there now, because we just found out a few chapters ago Gail was actually left by the garbage, and her parents ain't her real parents. "Well, your mother threw you away, and I begged Mom and Daddy to take you in." "Thank you, Gail. I've been in your debt ever since I was 11, but you know what? We can call it even now, and since the debt's paid, you can get the hell out of my life." "Excuse me?" Gail stared like Pat was speaking in tongues. They looked at each other for a long moment. That used to be enough to say all that needed to be said, but not now. "What's the point, Gail? I'm not even sure I like you anymore, so let's not pretend." Pat's voice was calm, relieved. "So you can turn me off just like a faucet? Call it what you want." "Fine, because I'm not sure I like you anymore either." Pat's whole body shook after Gail closed the door. She just dismissed her soul sister, the last link to the first 2 decades of her life, and who was there now? Certainly not Peter Jackson. Not only didn't he love her, but he was probably still laughing about just how dense she was to think he could. Like a stupid little country nigger. Werner's words came up in Pat's throat like curdled milk, but she choked them down. No, this is different. But then the horror of the afternoon and what she'd done brought her to the present, and she doubled the pain from the cramps and rocked to quiet the howl she was sure would never end if she let it pass her lips. The next morning, Pat's whole body felt bruised, like she fought 12 rounds with Muhammad Ali, but her head was clear. As of today, she was officially shutting the book on the first part of her life. Whatever came before was no longer open for comment or consideration, and the future was yet to be written. And 2 Sundays later, she sat in the middle of her bed with a ham sandwich and a glass of champagne, watching the Yankees play Baltimore. Marcus had already hit a single and stolen a base. Guess he was right about the agent. Looks like he left the past behind, too. But the game was incidental. She was waiting for the debut of her tropical quencher spot. They pulled it off on time, under budget. The client loved it, and none of it would have gone down this way without her. Suddenly, people who barely nodded in the elevator stopped by Pat's desk to talk. Chris couldn't find anything snide to say because he was too busy trying to save his ass since his Lush Lips commercial came in way over budget. Zabriskie took Pat to lunch and let her know Tasty was impressed with her big time, and he had a test spot for her. It was strictly low budget for focus group only, but it's your baby. He made it clear his door was always open. If she kept working this hard, he was sure she'd be promoted to producer in the very near future. Baltimore was leading when they broke for commercial. When she saw the couple holding hands as they waded out of an aqua lagoon, she got goosebumps. In the 30 seconds it ran, Pat got a rush bigger than she got from anything or anybody. People in New York, Swan City, and Walla Walla, Washington were looking at it just like she was, and she made it happen. I can do this. I can be the best, and nothing can stop me. Amen. Okay. That's nice to see. Let's see. There's a part 2 coming up. See how long. It's a pretty lengthy chapter. All right. We'll end here. I kind of want to go on. What time is it? 5:45? I'm going to keep going. So we're in part 2, chapter 14, Trying to Sleep. What was part 1 called? Hold on. Part 1 was called Making the Bed. Okay. Now part 2 is called Trying to Sleep. All right. So chapter 14. Go head on with your rich self, Mrs. Hillard. 1988, White Plains, New York. I'm sorry, Mrs. Hillard. Your card has been denied. Pardon me? Gail cocked her head indignantly. That's not possible. She used her platinum card here just last week. You must have done something wrong. Try again. Another swipe of the card, and the saleswoman waited. I'm sorry, but the heat of embarrassment rose in Gail's cheeks. You're new, aren't you? She removed another card from her wallet and thrust it at the clerk. Here. Mommy? Vanessa played an excited tattoo on Gail's arm. Mommy, look! She pointed to a display of glow-in-the-dark stars. Can we get those for my new room, too? Not now, Nessa. Mommy's busy. Gail dug her elbow into a pile of linens they spent 2 hours selecting. I know she made some stupid mistake. Wait till I tell Ramsey. She twisted her rings impatiently around her freshly manicured finger. But he's been in such a foul mood. If I mention it, he'll probably try to get her fired. With the increase in industrial parks and corporate headquarters relocating outside of New York City, Greener Pastures launched a commercial division and expanded into Connecticut and New Jersey. Ramsey had crews out 7 days a week, and he worked killer hours coordinating, supervising, and calling on prospective clients because he always told Gail, my company's like the shrubs I plant. If I don't tend them, they won't grow. Finally, the slip chugged through the electronic register. Gail signed the receipt with a flourish, only semi-placided by the clerk, who hurriedly bagged the purchases and apologized profusely for the delay. Vanessa, hands on hip, twisted from side to side, restless for the next adventure. At 8, she was tall and lanky like her father, but she was a honey-colored, doe-eyed fawn and the spitting image of Gail. Friday after school shopping and dinner out became their mother-daughter ritual when a stroke forced Loretta to retire and move in with them 2 years ago. Gail, still feeling guilty about her father's death, devoted herself to her mother's recuperation. Ramsey took care of selling the St. Albans house and investing the proceeds for his mother-in-law. Ramsey was glad Gail had something to keep her occupied, and Vanessa thought her Graham could do no wrong, so they never complained about the new arrangement. But when Christmas rolled around, and for the first time ever, Gail had no idea what toys made her daughter's eyes light up, she realized how little attention she paid to Vanessa. Fortunately, Loretta approached her rehab with the same stubborn determination that carried her through life. She walked and talked a little slowly and forgot things sometimes, but she recovered to the satisfaction of her doctors. And when Loretta got up one morning asking about beauty parlors because her auburn hair had 2-inch gray roots, Gail knew her mother would be fine. Right then, she decided that she and her own daughter needed some special time, just the two of them. Since Ramsey usually worked late on Friday, it became girls' night. On second thought, I'd like this scent. Gail decided it was more than she wanted to carry. Besides, she looked forward to the delivery truck rumbling up the long driveway. She liked the surprised look on the driver's face when he realized she was Mrs. Ramsey Hillard, not the girl in to clean and sign for her packages. On a late spring afternoon, shortly after Ramsey expanded greener pastures, he surprised Gail by driving her farther up in Westchester County. He turned into an unmarked road and continued uphill along a meandering gravel path through the woods and stopped in front of a red brick Greek revival. The wide, pillared front porch was centered by towering double doors decorated with enormous brass knockers. Imposing oaks and spruce trees shaded the rolling front lawn. Ramsey said it belonged to a client who was moving. If she wanted the place, he'd buy it. Gail loved their Tudor and White Plains, but this was a dream house, straight out of ebony, complete with a small, separate suite intended for the maid, which would be perfect for her mother. Ramsey, can we afford all this? She had asked. You leave that to me, Nightingale. I grew up looking at houses like this from the outside, trying to imagine how rich you had to be to live in one. He smiled, slowly bobbing his head. Yes, indeedy, you leave that to me. Then he kissed her breath away like he used to. Gail hadn't felt that in a long time. Maybe I won't mention the car trouble to Ramsey. It's probably nothing. Gail took her daughter's hand and led her out into the Galleria. Frozen yogurt? Vanessa grinned and pulled her mother in the direction of the concession. Gail played with a small cup of strawberry and sat and watched her daughter enjoy the cone. Betcha Keisha and Monica are going to be jealous of my new room. You don't want them to be jealous, do you? Only a little bit. Vanessa's eyes sparkled as she licked her cone. Think Daddy will like it too. So you think Daddy will like it too? So he'll play with me more? We'll see about that. It wasn't that Ramsey didn't love Vanessa, but aside from buying her presents, he seemed not to know what to do with her. Gail hoped he'd be more comfortable with Vanessa once she was older. As it was, he usually got in past Vanessa's bedtime, shoveled down his dinner, barely nodding to acknowledge Gail's attempt to fill him in on her day or Vanessa's progress in school or ballet class. He'd be asleep before his head hit the pillow. Gail wasn't getting much of Ramsey's attention either. They used to get a sitter and go to Broadway shows, then end up at Bessie's for a nightcap. These days, she knew Ramsey still went, but Gail couldn't remember the last time they were at Bessie's together. She rarely complained, though. She knew she was lucky, even when she was a little lonely. A couple of times a year, they still go to Atlantic City for the weekend. Gail would get all dolled up, as Ramsey liked to say, and he played blackjack and teased her when she cringed at the stacks of chips he bet. Ramsey would call her his lucky charm and make sure all the other players knew she belonged to him. Gail would squeeze his hand and close her eyes when the dealer turned at the last card, but they had fun and Ramsey never seemed to lose. Then he'd take her shopping for something expensive, and the sales girls would tell her how lucky she was to have a husband like Ramsey, who knew how to treat his wife. Her mother agreed. Men have to have their own recreation. Every Friday, your father went to the lodge meeting. Him and your Uncle Macon, God rest his soul. What you think they were meeting about till 3 in the morning? Ramsey's fun is little enough for all he provides. You live better than lots of folks I used to work for. At first, Ramsey didn't see how Gail could be lonely with Vanessa and her mother around. One day, he complained to Bessie. Then the underground restaurateur whose shady past could have blocked his acceptance in certain circles showed Ramsey the ropes. The Hillards joined the most prominent black Episcopal church in Westchester County, although Loretta complained that it was too snooty for her. Can't even say amen without folks looking at you like you broke wind. Ramsey only attended on Christmas and Easter. Bessie showed Ramsey the importance of strategic charitable contributions. After Ramsey bought tables for political fundraisers and donated greener pasture services to charity auctions, Gail was recruited for committees. She balked, claiming she didn't fit in, but Ramsey insisted Gail start moving in the circles that would help the business grow. Besides, committee work kept her busy and out of his hair. And when their picture ran in jet with a caption that read, Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey Hillard attend Westchester's College Fund Gala, Gail knew she had arrived and mailed a copy to Britta in Germany. But at the next planning committee meeting of the Phyllis Wheatley Scholarship Fund, Caribbean Splash Benefit Luncheon and Fashion Show, she got the same cool smiles and polite nods when the women clustered in their usual tight knots, bound by laughter and gossip. Most were older, belonged to the same sorority, shared alma maters, or friends who did. Gail had never set foot in college except to visit Pat. Ramsey's checks couldn't buy their friendship, but she wanted Vanessa to belong to this club, so she ignored the slights, kept smiling, and hurried off like she had somewhere important to go. Mommy is dripping. Melting strawberry cream ran down the cone onto Vanessa's hands. Gail got up to find more napkins. As soon as he closed on the new house, Ramsey told her to hire an interior designer and gave her carte blanche on decorating. Fabric samples, paint chips, furniture showrooms, and antique stores became her job for nearly a year, which was perfect since it was Vanessa's first in school all day. Now the last phase, Vanessa's room was almost complete. Her pickled oak country French furniture would arrive tomorrow, so everything would be in place for her first slumber party next week. With the house finally complete, Gail told herself she should feel a sense of accomplishment, but all she felt inside was empty. Let's see those fingers. Let's see those fingers. Gail wiped Vanessa's hands and they left. On the way to the parking lot, they cut through Neiman's. Gail stopped at the fragrance counter, chose a bottle of opium, gave the clerk her store charge, and waited, trying to look nonchalant. Thank you. Have a nice day, Miss Hillard. Good, no problem. Then she spied a pair of sunglasses she had to have. Charge. In the children's department, they selected an outfit for Vanessa to wear the night of her party and 2 new nightgowns because they couldn't decide which they liked best. Charge. Gail was satisfied, but there was a sale in the shoe department. 2 pair of sandals later, Gail and Vanessa were finally on their way. I have to get gas. Gail made sure Vanessa was buckled in, and she eased her civil out the lot. What would you like for dinner, Miss Hillard? Mommy has a headache. Would it be okay if we got something and took it home? Hamburgers! Yippee! Vanessa knew fast food was mostly off limits because her mother hated eating at those places, but she saw the takeout opportunity and seized it. Ugh, but okay. Burgers it is. And since Loretta had gone to Cleveland for a weekend gospel festival with her friends from Mount Moriah, she wouldn't have to hear about those nasty cat burgers. Gail pulled up to the pump, told the attendant to fill it, and handed him her gasoline credit card when he was done. Sorry, ma'am, this won't go through. At home, Vanessa devoured her fries and cheeseburger. Aren't you hungry? Gail's food remained untouched on the kitchen table. No, honey, I guess I'm not. But when you finish, go on up and get ready for bed. Vanessa slipped one of Gail's fries out of the paper container and munched. Can we read in your bed tonight? If you promise to go to your own bed when it's time, I can't carry you anymore. That's 'cause I'm a big girl. Vanessa scampered upstairs. Gail smiled. That you are. She took an aspirin since her head was still pounding, then got her wallet. Ramsey always made sure she had the new cards each year, but she checked the expiration dates anyway. He paid all the bills, and she had seen him writing checks, so that wasn't it. Ramsey would know what it's all about. She fixed him a plate and left it in the refrigerator, ready for the microwave in case he was hungry when he got in, then went upstairs without solving the mystery. Vanessa was waiting in the king-size 4-poster, propped on a stack of ruffled pillows. She examined her bronze baby shoes and the picture in the attached frame that sat on Ramsey's night table. How old was I in this picture again? For the 552nd time, you were 14 months old, and the shoes were the ones I took my first step in. Vanessa giggled as she finished the familiar story. And your daddy can't sleep without that picture right by his side of the bed. Gail nestled next to her daughter and read another installment of The Adventures of Elle Crawford, A Girl and Her Magic Shoes. Vanessa had invented Elle as an imaginary playmate when she was 4, and Gail started making up stories about her. Now she actually wrote them out and illustrated them too. Before Elle had earned the eternal thanks of Mama Crocodile for rescuing her baby from the mouth of the Zambezi River, Vanessa was asleep. Gail worked hard at being a good daughter, wife, and mother, but every now and again she thought it might not be enough. Ramsey spent almost every waking moment working. Loretta, determined not to be treated like an old woman, kept herself busy. She volunteered at the Red Cross and, in spite of Gail's objections, insisted on helping the cleaning woman who came in twice a week. Gail could always tell when her mother had been supervising. She'd find one of her perfume bottles in the den or her pepper mill in the foyer where her mother had absentmindedly left it, but the cleaning lady said she didn't mind the company and it made Loretta feel useful. And although Gail knew Vanessa still needed her, every day she grew more I can do that myself, mommy, independent. When her daughter was 4 going on 40, Gail started talking about another baby. Ramsey wasn't having it. Said he worked too hard to be kept awake at night by a crying baby again, and she was lucky Vanessa didn't make her fat and flabby with ugly stretch marks. He didn't want to chance that. He didn't want to chance that. Did she? Then he made love to her and made her promise to stop thinking about it. The next day, he brought home a diamond tennis bracelet, 2 tickets to Hawaii, and told her to arrange for Vanessa's babysitter to stay the week. Gail knew he was saying, this can happen because we don't have a baby. When they came back, Gail had her tubes tied. Ramsey bought her a Seville, and only once in a while, late at night, when she was alone, did she wonder, what if? Gail roused Vanessa enough to lead her to bed, tucked her in, smoothed her eyebrows, and switched off the light. Between school, dance, piano, and riding lessons, and brownies, Gail was busy as a chauffeur. She talked to the other mothers in parking lots, at bake sales, on field trips, but didn't have any real friends. Ramsey didn't either, except maybe Bessie, but it didn't seem to bother him. Brenda and Dexter had moved back to New York when he got out of the service. Ramsey liked Dexter right away, mostly because Dexter was very impressed with Ramsey's accomplishments. Vanessa and Dexter Jr. enjoyed playing together, so the Washingtons had visited often. Brenda thought Gail had hit pay dirt with Ramsey. She had walked through the old house with her mouth open. Go on ahead with your rich self, Mrs. Hiller. What if she could see this one? Ramsey thought Brenda was common, but Gail was thrilled to have her friend back, so he left it alone. Then Brenda found the wrong brand of pantyhose in the trunk of Dexter's ride. She left him in a finger snap. At first, Gail called her regularly, but Brenda talked about her husband like a dog, and Gail couldn't take it. As soon as the divorce was final, Brenda moved to San Diego with Dexter Jr., got herself a real estate license, a new man, and decided California was heaven. Divorce was unthinkable to Gail. Ramsey, Vanessa, Mama, they were her family. Nothing was more important than that. Shortly before Vanessa was born, Gail started to worry about carrying some rare genetic disease she knew nothing about and would pass on to the baby. She became so obsessed that Ramsey hired an investigator to track down her real parents, but all he found was a stone-cold dead end. Sometimes Gail still wondered about them, but she'd feel disloyal to her mother, more like a traitor to her father than she already did, and she'd end up making an extra trip to the cemetery to ease her conscience. Gail turned on the TV in her bedroom to Dallas, stressed out on the chase, and reached for her sketch pad to work on a new L adventure for Vanessa. She mostly tried not to think about Pat, but reminders lurked in unexpected places. Just last month, Vanessa found snapshots from Pat's graduation. Gail remembered that she never sent them as she promised, and there was a woman at church who sounded like Pat. The first time Gail heard her alto from the back of the choir loft, she got the shivers. Ramsey was glad they lost touch and said as much. When Loretta asked about Pat that first Christmas after she graduated, Gail told her mother they'd had a fight and to leave it alone. For once, Loretta did. Gail never told her husband or her mother what had happened between her and Pat, but then there were lots of things she kept to herself. When Ramsey tiptoed into the room, Gail had been asleep for hours. He bent down and kissed her neck. "Hi," Gail mumbled, stretched, and sat up. "What's it going to be tonight?" Ramsey could come in bubbling with enthusiastic plans to expand the business or take a trip. Just as easily he could be withdrawn or plain ornery like her father used to say. Gail used to love Ramsey's whistling, but now, more often than not, she used it as a moodometer. Top 40 soul meant he was cruising fine and dandy. Bluesy snatches of nothing in particular signaled a bad attitude, and she hadn't heard him come in, so she had no idea what to expect. Trying not to be obvious, she flipped on the light and glanced at the clock. She didn't want to start anything. She just wanted to know the time. It was 3:50. "How's my nightingale?" Ramsey smiled and ran his finger along her arm. "Glad to see you." Gail relaxed. She yawned and decided to tell him about her day. "Something strange happened with some of my credit cards. Either Miss Banks forgot to mail my envelopes or there's some kind of computer mess up." Ramsey peeled down to his underwear, sat on the side of the bed, and traced the bronze laces of Vanessa's baby shoe. "I'll see about that first thing Monday." He got into bed. Gail kissed his chest and glanced down at her hand to make sure her ring was off. After leaving a sizable gash in Ramsey's back one night, she stopped wearing the big marquee stone to bed. She lifted her head and looked at him. Ramsey was one of those men who got better looking with age, and Gail, no matter how hard she tried, could never picture him looking old like her daddy. The hair at his temples and his mustache was shot with silver, and the fine lines around his eyes and mouth added authority. He looked like a man who knew the answers. She snuggled up next to him, savoring the sweet moment, because she didn't know how long it would have to do her. What? She snuggled up next to him, savoring the sweet moment, because she didn't know how long it would have to do her. Ramsey slid his hand under Gail's nightgown, massaged her thigh. He was feeling good, better than he felt in a long time. He'd hoped to get by without Gail running into any problems with the credit cards, but it was all taken care of now. He mailed the checks himself yesterday. The first 4 months of the year had been a touch and go, and he had to let a few bills slide. The 2 new clients just came through with sizable retainers, and the ponies had been running his way all week. I don't like seeing worry in your eyes. Ramsey kissed her lids. I put the fire in those eyes, and I'll always keep it burning. He turned out the light, rubbed her breasts, and rooted around. Gail squirmed and moaned a little to make it seem convincing, but it wasn't like it used to be. Mostly sex had become his need and her duty. It got so bad that she asked him point blank if he was having an affair. When he stopped laughing, he assured her there was nobody but greener pastures. Every once in a while, he would light her fire, but tonight she tilted her head to the side to keep from knocking the mahogany headboard with each mechanical thrust. Ramsey twisted up his face and let his eyes roll back. Oh yeah, he felt real good. He fell over to his side on the bed. Your cat-in-the-hat ball player boy never knew what he was missing. It was early in the baseball season, but Ramsey had already won pretty big against the Orioles. They might have won the series in '83, but they ain't dooley squat now. I hate when you bring Marcus into our bed. A couple of times a year, especially since Marcus made it big, Ramsey dug him up like squaring off in her front hall 9 years ago didn't end the duel. I forgot about him the day I met you. Isn't that enough? Yeah, Mr. Big Stuff. Ramsey scratched and raised up on his elbow, searching for the remote control. I bet you read all about his sports cars and his girlfriend and wonder what the hell you doing with a man who shovels cow shit for a living. Gail sighed. Ramsey, I married you because I love you. I don't know what I felt for Marcus. Marcus Carter plays games. I do wonder sometimes. You're a successful businessman. What it would be like to be Mrs. Carter. How can you even compare the two? Ramsey channel zapped in silence. He's going out with that model from Africa. You know, what's her name? I don't know, Ramsey. T. Her name is T. Everybody knows that. Any more than I know why you can't forget about him. Wait. I don't know, Ramsey. Any more than I know why you can't forget about him. Gail's head pounded like a bass drum. I have a beautiful little girl, a gorgeous house, and a wonderful husband who takes care of everything. She turned over. You wouldn't want to trade places with him if you could. What does that mean? Nothing, Ramsey. She hadn't meant for that to slip out. She was just tired of this conversation. It's late. It must mean something or you wouldn't have said it. Gail pretended to fall asleep so he'd be quiet. But the next morning, Ramsey worried her about Marcus like a dog with a bone, accused her of keeping secrets. He left the house in a mean mood, and it wasn't out of his system when he got home. Nothing about that icy afternoon had ever passed Gail's lips. They had promised, the three of them, never to tell another soul, but Ramsey kept badgering her, and Freddie had been dead so long she figured it couldn't matter anymore. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, let me back up. She about to tell him what happened when they was kids? All right, so you wouldn't want to trade places with him if you could. What does that mean? Nothing, Ramsey. Okay. So, she just wanted Ramsey to leave her alone and to stop envying Marcus once and for all. If I tell you, will you promise not to mention him again? Yeah, all right. When we were little, Marcus, Pat, and I, Marcus had an older brother. Gail told Ramsey about the gym bag, the gun, and the shot that sounded like corn popping. His mom hasn't been right since. It was Freddie who loved baseball. Marcus only started playing after his brother died, kind of in honor, I guess. Well, now, Mr. Baseball is a stone killer. That's what he keeps under all those hats. Ramsey's eyes glazed with satisfaction. I told you you wouldn't want to be him. Gail lay awake, running slumber party preparations through her head, convincing herself she'd done the right thing until sunlight sneaked around the edges of the window shades. "Can we have pizza for breakfast, Mrs. Hillard?" Keisha smiled at her sweetly. "Yeah, pizza." Of course, the little girls chanted from the family room, where they sat cross-legged on the floor in their pajamas, deciding whether to watch Muppet Babies or Rainbow Bright on the gigantic TV. So far, Vanessa's sleepover was a big success. 6 of her very best friends had given the room a proper christening. Last night, a face painting artist transformed the little girls into exotic birds and butterflies. Gail hired a chef from the local pizzerias to supervise them in making their own pizzas, and she arranged for the sitter to help her keep the girls, busy. "What kind of breakfast is pizza?" "I'm making donuts. I haven't made donuts in a month of Sundays." Loretta, Joy, and Gail in the kitchen. Actually, Loretta hadn't done much cooking at all. Originally, Ramsey planned to add a kitchen to her apartment, but her forgetfulness since the stroke changed his mind. "Yeah, donuts." They probably cheer for cauliflower. Gail glanced at the ceiling, hoping they hadn't disturbed Ramsey. Ramsey was enthusiastic when they had first planned the party. He even promised Vanessa he'd make her favorite strawberry banana pancakes for breakfast. Gail reminded him about it before he left for work yesterday, but he hadn't come home until nearly daybreak. Gail knew he wouldn't show, but she had hoped anyway for Vanessa's sake. Now she just wanted to get through the meal without incident. "Pancakes. We're all having pancakes this morning," Gail said explicitly. It was as much for the benefit of her young guests as for her mother, who was in the cabinet trying to drag out the big cast iron Dutch oven she fried donuts in. "Yeah, pancakes," they cheered. "I bet you my daddy makes pancakes better than any daddy," Vanessa announced. Don't know what's good," Loretta snorted and sat on a stool by the island. "We'll have donuts tomorrow, okay, Gram?" Vanessa got up and leaned on her grandmother's knee. "When's Daddy coming down?" "Honey, Daddy's not up yet. He worked really late last night, so we'll have to get by without his help." "He promised. He's always working. He never keeps his promises," Vanessa pouted. "You know he'll make it up to you." Gail disappeared into the pantry. Ramsey will bring her a new doll or whatever else was part of the biggest display in the toy store. "I don't want a present. I want him to make us pancakes," Vanessa muttered as she slunk back to the den. Breakfast came and went disaster-free. By the time Ramsey appeared, shaved and dressed, they were back from the matinee, and the girls lined up on the den sofa, swayed from side to side, singing Somewhere Out There for the umpteenth time. "Hi, Daddy," Vanessa plowed into her father. "I thought this thing was to celebrate your new room." Ramsey nodded toward the chorus in the family room. Vanessa grabbed his hand and smiled up at him, absent-mindedly twisting the diamond ring around his pinky. "We did. We are. We're having so much fun. You missed it." Gail, watching from the kitchen, saw the tension lines around his mouth. "Can I fix you something?" "No, I'll eat when I come back." "Stop it, Nessa." Ramsey shook his hand loose and pulled his car keys from his pocket. "I've got a run to make." Vanessa sighed and went back with her friends. "Okay, I'll have a snack ready when you get back. I want to watch all the pre-race stuff." "I forgot. It's Derby Day." The first time they watched the race together, Ramsey told her stories about amazing horses, ponies he called them, and heroic jockeys. He explained in exacting detail the intricacies of racing. Last year, Ramsey bought a horse, Dreams Girl, the first of his string, he told her. A colt with the same sire as Ramsey's filly was running this year, so she knew the Derby was important to him. "I won't be long." The door slammed and Ramsey was gone. "I hope these kids are gone by race time." Fortunately, mothers started arriving for their daughters, each departure triggering a long, sad goodbye, like they never had this much fun together again. The drizzle that started when they got back from the movies had increased to an insistent shower. Only Monica and Keisha to return to their rightful owners. They rounded out the inseparable trio Gail called the A-Team. The way the three of them clung together always reminded Gail of her and Pat and Marcus, but she kept that thought to herself. Gail, exhausted, sipped mint tea at the kitchen counter. The headache that had settled across her brow made her squint, and the jeers and boos coming from her mother's room didn't help. Loretta had the TV in her sitting room turned up to high heaven for her Saturday afternoon wrestling. It's a wonder she's not deaf. "Listen to me." She used to say that to me and Pat. Gail shook her head and got up to make a sandwich from Ramsey. "What if you want something hot?" Ramsey came in, whistling, heard it through the grapevine. "I bought pizza for my girls. It's wicked outside, but it's sunny and dry in KY." He laughed at his rhyme and he put 2 boxes on the counter, then hung his wet jacket in the back hall. Vanessa came in to investigate. But Daddy, we love pizza, Gail chimed in and signaled Vanessa to leave it alone. Ramsey didn't remember they made pizza last night, and since he returned in a better mood than when he left, it was easier to pretend it was exactly what they wanted. Gail popped one of the pies in the oven to warm. Vanessa shrugged and went back to Monica and Keisha and their game of chutes and ladders. Ramsey followed Vanessa into the den and fiddled with the color on the TV until it suited him. Gail debated whether to send the girls upstairs, but they were playing quietly and they'd be picked up any minute. In the background, she heard a reporter run down a list of celebrities attending the Run for Roses and daydreamed just for a moment of being there in a wide-brimmed straw hat enjoying the festivities with Ramsey. It's almost post time. Ramsey had settled in his favorite leather chair. Gail moved the vase aside, set his tray on the table next to him, and perched on the ottoman. Do you know what it means? Do you know what it means for Dreams Girl if Shadow wins the Derby? Gail figured it was good, but Ramsey didn't expect an answer anyway. Truth was, she didn't care about all his horse talk, but she could see he was excited. I know he's 25-1, but the favorite hasn't won this race since 1979. And if to back him up, the announcer said if the pace was fast, there was a strong possibility Shadow could finish in the top 3. You hear that? What did I tell you? Ramsey leaned forward, rubbing his hands together. I'll have investors lined up begging for a piece of my girl. And the way he figured it, he'd walk away with a big enough chunk of cash to put all his finances to rights and then some. He'd be flush again, and that didn't even count when he bet on the colt. As handlers fed the horses into the starting gate, the doorbell rang. Gail jumped up to answer. Monica's mother stood dripping on the threshold. Gail knew that Miss Phillips was president of the Parents Alliance at school, ran her own catering service, and was married to the chief of police. But right now, dressed in a bright yellow slicker, matching rain hat and red Wellingtons, the round, brown woman looked like a Paddington bear. Gail smiled politely. Come in. I'll get the crash of exploding glass sent both women rushing toward the screams and shrieks coming from the den. A smoky cloud and the acrid smell of burning plastic hung in the air. Gail reached the room in time to see Ramsey disappear up the back stairs. The television hissed and sparked from a jagged, gaping hole in the screen. Water dripped down the front of the set, and pale yellow jonquils mingled with glass shards on the carpet. On the far side of the room, the girls huddled and sobbed, chutes and ladder pieces at their feet. Mommy! Monica attached herself to her mother's leg. Gail hugged Vanessa and Keisha. We weren't doing anything, just playing. Daddy just threw it, the vase, and it broke the TV, Vanessa stammered. He did what? Mrs. Phillips snarled at Gail. What kind of man would do that? And in front of children? She scooped her daughter into her arms and pulled Keisha out of Gail's grasp. Come on, honey, get your things. I'll take you home. You don't have to stay here another minute. Keisha wiped her tears on her sleeve and went to get her coat. I can tell you this, Mrs. Hillard, Monica won't be back, and I'm sure once I talk to her mother, Keisha won't either. We should have been upstairs, in my room. Tears streamed down Vanessa's cheeks when the others had gone. Shh, Gail held her daughter tight. You didn't do anything wrong. Nothing. Gail struggled to keep herself from trembling. That Tony the Terror is one mean... What happened in here? Loretta emerged from her room and stared open-mouthed at the smoldering mess. I'm not exactly sure, Mama. The children did that? No, but why don't you take Vanessa with you and finish watching? I'll clean up, okay? Gail turned Vanessa around to face her grandmother. You want me to take her back to watch? You want me to take her back to watch wrestling? Loretta knew something was up. Come on, Van. Vanessa dashed into Loretta's arms. Tag team is next. Thor and Tommy Thunder versus Hook and Lockjaw. They headed up Loretta's short flight of stairs. Gail unplugged the broken TV, then raced up to the bedroom. He's never acted like this. Ramsey was moody, unpredictable, and often irritable, but this was insane. Well, what's the matter with you? Ramsey sat at the foot of their bed, his shoe shine kit open at his feet, rubbing paste wax on an ox blood slip-on. He had pulled up the spread and covered the ivory carpeting with an old towel just like he always did. He didn't look up, but he'd been expecting her. She walked to the window. Have you gone crazy? In delicate circles, Ramsey massaged polish into the leather with a rag. He'd asked himself that question. Nothing like that had ever taken hold of him before. 5 o'clock shadow flew out of the gate and settled at the front of the thundering pack, running easy like a spring breeze. That's when Ramsey started shaking, down in his Kentucky bones. Shadow charged, and Ramsey felt redeemed for all the shit he ever shoveled and all the times he was called out of his name by well-bred gentlemen. His horse was coming home. He could feel it, and it was a sign his lucky star was on the rise. Do you know how much you scared Nessa and her friends? Gail faced the rain-streaked window. She couldn't look at him. Did she know how much he scared himself? Ramsey slipped his hand inside the shoe and started brushing. Shadow was in command, 6 lengths ahead, no prodding, no prop for him. Ramsey watched, spellbound. Then the horse dropped to his knees. Just like that, kneeled over, dead in his tracks. Ramsey knew it was a heart attack. He'd seen it happen once before, but it could have happened to but it couldn't have happened to Shadow, and he couldn't have thrown that vase through the TV screen. Ramsey had relived the moment 100 times since he came upstairs, like that made anything different. The right side of his shoe gleamed from the vigorous strokes, but the left was still mottled with wax. Not to mention me. How could you do that? She spun around to face him. Of course, he couldn't tell her he'd gone and broken his own rules. He hadn't been winning enough to keep out of the hole, and when he found himself in a tight spot, he had let the business invest in his hobby. Just for a while, until he got straight. He wouldn't tell her he'd used the retainers he got for the 2 new clients to clean up his stable and training fees for a filly that it didn't even pay to breed now, and it wasn't her business that he wouldn't dip into his private stash to fix this. That money was strictly a last resort, his last stake, and he didn't need the parachute yet. Gail waited, arms locked across her chest. She didn't look like his sweet Nightingale now, more like his mother, spiteful and cussing, meeting his father at the door when he stumbled in from a 3-day drunk. Ramsey kept brushing the shiny side of his shoe. He couldn't tell Gail what happened. Of course he lost before, that's part of the deal. But this should have been a turning point. He bet on that. Now what could he say? Things haven't been going so good. I can't win for losing. I'll make it up to you, baby. That wasn't a man's way. He didn't realize he started whistling. Stop that and answer me. Gail glared at him, waiting for an explanation. All that unnecessary noise. I don't know. He did still have a voice. He told her what happened to Shadow. It's just, he dropped his head and stared. Well, the business, things haven't been going so hot lately. Some of my best clients left me for the big national change. That's why I want to keep expanding. He looked at her now, measuring the impact of his words before he continued. I hope the money from investors and dreams, girl, would at least give me a fighting chance. I get some new equipment. I was stupid, I guess. Gail sat next to him on the bed. You should have told me. I know how hard you work, but you never let on. I didn't want you to worry. I still don't. I just got real upset. I'll sell dreams, girl, tighten things up a bit, and it'll be fine. I'll make this up to you and Vanessa. I will. Gail thought she saw tears at the corner of Ramsey's eyes. How can I help? I need you to forgive me, Nightingale. Need? He never said that before. Of course I forgive you. The next morning, Gail eased Ramsey's Mark 7 into a space in front of the Super Quick. The sky was bright and cloudless, a few oily puddles in the parking lot, the only reminder of yesterday's downpour. Gail didn't like driving his car because he always complained about having to readjust the seats and mirrors afterward, but he had blocked hers in the garage, and Vanessa was worried about being late for Sunday school. Orange juice, half and half. Gail turned the ignition off, opened the door, reached for her purse, and only then remembered it sitting on the kitchen counter. She checked her pockets, 11 cents. He's got to have change in here. Between the seats, 62 cents. Mat pocket, 4 dimes, glove box, the coin slots were full. Thank you, Ramsey. She didn't know why the book next to the lock de-ice had caught her eye. The book was small and black, nondescript really, like a mileage log, but she opened it. Names, dates, and numbers written in Ramsey's small, cramped script filled the pages. Lots of numbers, underlined, circled in red. He pressed so hard that if you turned the pages over, it felt like Braille. He always presses too hard. She tried to get him to stop, but he told her it was pretty near impossible to teach an old dog new tricks. Gail's head started to throb, and she pulled down the visor to block out the sun. She recognized the names, at least some of them, sports teams, the numbers. They couldn't be dollars, thousands and thousands of dollars. There were multiple entries for almost every day. Football, hockey, basketball. Gail didn't remember the drive home. Things haven't been going so hot. Buy some new equipment. I didn't want to worry you. She came to when she slammed the bedroom door. Ramsey rolled over and lifted his head. Morning, babe. How much have you lost, Ramsey? She knew he gambled, but not like this. What did it cost you, or should I say us, when that stupid horse dropped dead? She threw the book at him before he could deny anything. Tell me, why did you lie? He raised up, pulled the covers around him. Where'd you get, it's not like that. This isn't what you think. And what is it, I think, Ramsey? That you got a problem because you'll bet on anything? Nightingale, I got a little carried away. Tossed the covers back and got out of bed. But yesterday scared some sense into me. Ramsey stood in front of her in his white undershirt, his long, spiny legs protruding from baggy boxer shorts. When we were away, you always bet more than I thought you should, but what did I know? Not that you bet every day. Every day, Ramsey? Is that why you're so moody? You win, you're happy. You lose, you're miserable. Are we broke? Tell me, are we? Broke? No way, that'll never happen. I always have a safety net, always. Anyway, I told you, I learned my lesson. This is crazy, Ramsey. You can't do this anymore. You have to stop. She caught herself before the or escaped. Or what, Gail? Or I'll leave, take Vanessa and my mother and go where? She had a checking account that Ramsey opened for her. He put money in it every month so she didn't have to bother him for minor expenses. That should last us how long? I don't even know how much is in there. In an instant, the tears welled up, and Gail realized that she didn't know what they owned or what they owned or have. And Gail realized that she didn't know what they owned or have two quarters to rub together that didn't come from Ramsey. What would we do if, I swear to you, Nightingale, it's over, finished. Yesterday was it for me. Come here. He opened his arms for her. It's just, I'm so scared, Ramsey. Gail sobbed into his chest. Ramsey held her tight. You don't have to be scared of anything. I promise, baby. I promise. Please. All right, that's the end of chapter 14. The start of part 2. I'll check in with y'all again soon. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.